I didn't know my life was about to split into a before and an after over something as stupid as three heart emojis. It started with my boyfriend leaving a comment under his ex-girlfriend's photo. Some connections never die. Three little hearts. Posted like it was nothing. Like I was supposed to scroll past it and smile. When I asked him about it, he didn't flinch. He didn't even look guilty. He smiled like I'd just told a harmless joke. "You're insecure," he said, casual as breathing. And something in me went quiet. So I made it simple. I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I didn't threaten. I just opened my phone that night and unfollowed him. Then I unfollowed his family, his friends, everyone tied to him, everyone tied to her. I didn't block anybody, I didn't announce it. I just removed the entire web from my feed like pulling a thread out of a sweater. 20 minutes, that's all it took. I went to bed with my heart thudding against my ribs, staring at the ceiling, listening to him breathe beside me like nothing had changed. And then the next morning, my phone buzzed. A message request from someone I didn't know. I almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity has always been my weakness. That little voice that says, just look, just confirm, just make sure you're not crazy. The message was short, polite, too calm. "Hey, I don't know if you know who I am, but I'm dating your boyfriend's ex. I saw you unfollowed everyone last night, and I thought you should probably know some things. Can we talk?" My stomach dropped so hard it felt like my body forgot how to breathe. I stared at the screen, reading it over and over, like the words might rearrange themselves into something harmless. Behind me, in our bedroom, my boyfriend was still asleep, or pretending to be. I whispered into the quiet room, not to him, not to anyone, just to myself. "Oh my God. What did you do?" I was 35 years old when all of this happened, old enough to believe I knew the difference between intuition and insecurity, old enough to think I had learned the hard lessons already. I had been in serious relationships before. I had loved. I had been hurt. I had rebuilt myself more than once. That was why, when I met him, I thought this time would be different. We met through mutual friends at a small birthday gathering. Nothing dramatic, no sparks flying across the room. Just a long conversation that started near the kitchen counter and somehow lasted the entire night. He was charming in a quiet way, the kind of man who listened more than he talked. He laughed easily, but not loudly. He asked questions and actually waited for the answers. He was 32, worked in a creative field, and had this habit of rubbing the back of his neck when he was thinking. He told me he had just come out of a long relationship, 3 years, ended about 8 months earlier. "It was amicable," he said. "No cheating, no drama. We just wanted different things." I remember nodding, filing it away as neutral information. Everyone has a past. I wasn't looking for a man without history. I was looking for a man who was done living in it. We took things slow, really slow. Coffee dates, long walks, late-night conversations about childhood memories and future plans. By the 3rd month, he was sleeping over more often than not. By the 6th, we were talking about moving in together, about saving money, about what kind of life we wanted to build. He fit into my routine quietly. Morning coffee together, grocery shopping on Sundays, cooking dinner most nights, music playing softly in the background. He knew how I liked my eggs. I knew which meetings stressed him out at work. It felt steady, safe, and I trusted him. The ex-girlfriend, though, was always there in small ways. Not loud, not obvious, just present. Like smoke you can smell but can't see. He mentioned her casually sometimes. She would have loved this movie. Or, we used to go to that cafe a lot. Not constantly, just enough to remind me she existed. When I asked, he said they barely talked anymore. Maybe a text on birthdays, holidays, that kind of thing. I believed him, because I had no reason not to. I met his family. His mother hugged me a little too tightly the first time. His sister was polite but distant. His friends welcomed me, but there was always that one pause when someone mentioned his past, like they were checking his reaction before finishing the sentence. I ignored it, or maybe I explained it away. I told myself this was what maturity looked like. Two people with histories choosing each other anyway. What I didn't realize then was that while I was building a future with him, part of him was still standing in the doorway of his past, looking back. And I wouldn't see the cost of that until it was already tearing everything apart. Looking back now, I can see the cracks forming long before everything broke. At the time, they didn't look like warning signs. They looked like normal relationship friction, the kind people tell you not to overthink. There were moments when he felt distant for no clear reason. Not cold, just elsewhere. He would be sitting next to me on the couch, phone in his hand, scrolling silently, his jaw tight. When I asked what was wrong, he'd say work stress, a deadline, a conversation with his sister. Something vague enough to shut the question down without sounding defensive. Sometimes, late at night, I'd wake up and realize he wasn't beside me. I'd find him on the balcony, staring into the dark, phone glowing in his hand. When I asked who he was texting, he'd shrug. Just can't sleep. Then he'd turn the screen face down and come back to bed, pulling me close like nothing had happened. His family didn't help. His mother had a way of bringing up his ex-girlfriend without ever saying her name. Some people just understand him better, she'd say softly, or, he's always had a hard time letting go of people he loved deeply. It was said like a compliment, like loyalty, not like a problem. His sister once asked me, half joking, "You don't mind that he stays friends with his ex, right?" When I hesitated just for a second, she smiled too quickly. I mean, it shows emotional maturity. I remember feeling stupid for the knot in my stomach that day. There were other things too. He'd get irritated when I asked about boundaries. He didn't like the word. Said it made relationships feel like contracts instead of feelings. If I asked whether he thought commenting heart emojis on an ex-girlfriend's photos was appropriate, he'd laugh it off. It's just social media, he'd say. It doesn't mean anything unless you make it mean something. Slowly, without realizing it, I started doubting my own reactions. I would rehearse conversations in my head before bringing anything up, trimming my words down, softening my tone, trying not to sound insecure. I didn't want to be the woman who policed his past. I didn't want to be controlling. I wanted to be chosen freely. But the air between us was changing. There was a heaviness that settled in the apartment, like something unresolved was living there with us. Our dinners became quieter, our laughter shorter. When we touched, it felt more like habit than connection. And beneath all of it was a question I kept pushing down because I was afraid of the answer. Was he fully here with me, or was I just the place he stayed while he figured out whether he'd made a mistake leaving her? That question followed me everywhere. To work, to bed, into my dreams. And then, one afternoon during my lunch break, scrolling mindlessly through social media, I saw the comment. And everything I'd been trying not to see finally came into focus. It was a random Tuesday, nothing special about it. I was sitting alone in my car during my lunch break, engine off, phone in my hand, scrolling the way you do when your mind is tired and you're not really looking for anything. And then I saw it. His profile picture appeared on my screen. Not because I'd searched for him, because the algorithm decided I should see what he was engaging with. There it was, a photo of his ex-girlfriend sitting in a coffee shop, sunlight spilling across the table, a caption about missing old neighborhood spots. Nostalgic. Soft. Harmless on the surface. And under it, his comment. Some connections never die. 3 heart emojis. Posted 2 hours ago. I stared at my phone for a full minute, unmoving. My chest felt tight, like my lungs had forgotten their job. It was the strangest sensation, like being punched in the stomach but still waiting for the pain to arrive. I took a screenshot, not because I had a plan, not because I was plotting anything. I just needed proof for myself, needed to know I hadn't imagined it. That evening, I brought it up casually, or at least I tried to. We were cooking dinner together, like we did most nights. He was chopping vegetables. I was stirring pasta sauce, steam fogging up the kitchen windows. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice light. "I saw your comment on her post today." He didn't look up. "Whose post?" "Your ex-girlfriend's, the coffee shop one." "Oh," he said easily. "Yeah, she used to take me there all the time." I paused. The comment seemed, I don't know, intimate. He laughed, not nervous, not defensive, genuinely amused. "Intimate?" He finally looked at me, setting the knife down. It was just a comment. Some connections never die with 3 hearts? His expression changed then, not to guilt, to irritation. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm just asking." "You're being insecure," he said flatly. "It's social media. It doesn't mean anything." "Then why say it?" He sighed, the kind of sigh that told me he was already tired of the conversation. "We were together for 3 years," he said. "Yes, we had a connection. That doesn't disappear just because we broke up. It doesn't mean I want her back. It means I acknowledge we mattered to each other once. Is that not allowed?" The way he said it, slow, patient, slightly condescending, made something snap quietly inside me. This wasn't a discussion. This was him telling me how I was supposed to feel. Okay, I said, that's fine. We ate dinner mostly in silence. He talked about work, a project stressing him out. I nodded at the right moments, smiled when expected, but my mind was replaying that comment over and over. The hearts, the dismissal, the way he'd made me feel small for even asking. That night, after he fell asleep, I opened my laptop and I started unfollowing. First him, then his sister, his brother, his mother, his friends. Then I went to his ex-girlfriend's profile and did the same. Her friends, her family, anyone who seemed connected. I didn't block anyone. I didn't confront him again. I just quietly removed them from my world. 20 minutes later, I closed the laptop and went to bed. I lay there listening to him breathe, wondering when exactly I had stopped trusting the man beside me. And then the next morning, my phone buzzed. A message request from someone I didn't know. And with that single vibration, the ground beneath my relationship finally gave way. I accepted the message request with hands that didn't feel like mine. For a moment, the screen stayed blank, and in that silence, my heart started racing like it already knew what was coming. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic outside, normal life continuing while something inside me was cracking open. Her reply came almost instantly. Thank you for responding. I didn't want to overstep, but I would want to know if I were you. I swallowed hard and typed back, what's going on? The dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. They've been talking, a lot. My chest tightened. She messaged him about 2 weeks ago, she continued, said she missed him, asked if they could meet for coffee. I stared at the words, my vision blurring at the edges. 2 weeks. That meant while he was kissing me goodbye in the mornings, while we were planning our weekends, while he was telling me everything was fine. Did he respond? I typed. Yes, he told me right away. We don't keep secrets. That sentence hit me harder than anything else. Not because of him, because of mine. He turned her down, she wrote. Said he was in a relationship and didn't want to cross boundaries. But she kept commenting on his posts. Yesterday's comment scared me. That's when I checked and saw you two together. I thought you deserved to know. My stomach flipped. Do you have screenshots? I asked, even though part of me already knew the answer. Yes, she replied. Sending now. My phone buzzed 4 times in quick succession. I opened the first image. I know this is random, but I've been thinking about you a lot lately. Would you want to grab coffee sometime? Just as friends, obviously. LOL. I felt sick. The next screenshot showed his response. Calm. Firm. I don't think that's a good idea. I'm seeing someone, and I think my girlfriend would be uncomfortable with that. Her reply followed. Of course. I'm seeing someone too. It's just weird how much I've been thinking about our relationship lately, like maybe we gave up too easily. I pressed my lips together, my hands shaking. He answered again. I think we made the right call. I hope you're happy with your boyfriend. And then her words. I am. He's great. Just different from you. That was the moment something inside me collapsed completely. The final screenshot was from 3 days ago. Her talking about the coffee shop photo, about Sundays they used to spend together, about nostalgia, about the past. And his response again, steady. They were good times, but they're in the past. You should focus on your current relationship. I sat there frozen, the coffee in my hand long gone cold. The bedroom door was still closed. He was still asleep, or pretending to be. I saved every screenshot, every word. Then I typed one last message. Thank you for telling me. I appreciate your honesty. She replied, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. For what it's worth, he's been clear with her, but I thought you should know what she's been doing behind your back. I stared at my phone for a long time after that. Part of me wanted to wake him up and scream. Another part wanted to curl up and disappear. Instead, I sat there, breathing slowly, replaying every conversation we'd ever had about trust, about boundaries, about the past being in the past. By the time he walked into the living room later that morning, smiling like nothing was wrong, I already knew. This wasn't confusion. This was a choice. And now it was my turn to make one. When he walked into the living room, rubbing his eyes and stretching like it was any other Saturday, something inside me hardened. Not anger, not yet. It was clarity. Cold, steady, unavoidable. Morning, he said, smiling as he reached for the coffee pot. You've been up a while. Yeah, I replied. Couldn't sleep. He poured himself a cup and sat down beside me on the couch, close enough that I could smell his soap. Familiar, comforting, and suddenly unbearable. What are you working on? He asked, nodding toward my laptop. I closed it gently. I need to ask you something. He glanced at my face, hesitated for half a second. Okay. Have you been messaging your ex-girlfriend? The color drained from his face so fast it was almost frightening. For a moment, he looked blank, like his mind was scrambling to choose a story. What? He said. No, why would you ask that? Because I saw the screenshots. His jaw tightened. Screenshots of what? Of you asking her to meet for coffee, of you telling her you'd been thinking about your relationship, of you wondering if you gave up too easily. He stood up abruptly. How did you get those? That's your concern right now? Yes, it is. Someone is sharing private conversations. Private conversations where you're telling your ex-girlfriend you miss her while you're in a relationship with me. He started pacing, running a hand through his hair. It wasn't like that. I was just processing. I needed closure. Closure? My voice shook despite my effort. You broke up 8 months before we met. You told me it was amicable. You told me you barely talked. We didn't, he insisted. This was just a moment of weakness. A moment that lasted weeks. He stopped pacing and looked at me, frustration flashing across his face. Nothing happened. She turned me down. That's what matters. That's not the point, I said quietly. The point is you lied to me, and then you gaslit me when I asked about that comment. You made me feel crazy for even questioning it. Silence stretched between us. He sat back down, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. I don't know, he admitted. I don't know about us anymore. The words landed like a blow. What do you mean? I asked, even though I already knew. I don't know if I made the right choice letting her go, he said. I don't know if what we have is real, or if I'm just with you because you were there. There it was. The truth, stripped of excuses. I took a slow breath. Then you should pack a bag and stay somewhere else for a few days. His head snapped up. You're kicking me out? I'm asking you to leave, I said. There's a difference. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. Over a few messages that didn't even go anywhere? Over lying to me, I said. Over making me doubt myself while you chased something dead instead of investing in something real. He grabbed his phone and started typing furiously. 30 seconds later, he looked up. You talked to her boyfriend. That's how you know. Yes. I can't believe he'd do that. Why not? She was hitting on him. He protected his relationship, something you didn't do with ours. He threw his phone onto the couch. Fine, I'll pack a bag. But we're not done talking about this. Maybe we are. He disappeared into the bedroom. I listened to drawers opening, hangers scraping, the sounds of a life being pulled apart. 20 minutes later, he emerged with an overnight bag. I'm staying with my sister, he said. Okay. He hesitated at the door. Are you going to tell people about this? I haven't decided. Please don't, he said quietly. It's humiliating. It should be, I replied. The door closed behind him, and the apartment fell into a silence so loud it rang in my ears. But the storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. The apartment felt wrong after he left. Too quiet, too still, like the walls were holding their breath. I sat on the couch for a long time, not crying, not moving, just staring at the spot where he'd been standing minutes earlier. My phone buzzed once, then again, then again. I didn't look at it. I couldn't. The silence inside me was fragile, and I was afraid the wrong word would shatter it completely. Eventually, I stood up and walked through the apartment, room by room, like I was seeing it for the first time. His shoes were still by the door, his toothbrush in the bathroom cup, a hoodie of his draped over the back of the chair, evidence of a life that, until that morning, I thought was mutual. That was when it hit me. Not the anger, not even the betrayal. The loneliness. Not the kind where you miss someone. The kind where you realize you were already alone long before they walked out. I curled up on the bed and finally let myself cry. Quietly. My chest ached with every breath. My mind replayed moments I had dismissed. The late-night balcony texts. The defensive laughs. The way he'd shut me down when I tried to talk about boundaries. I saw them all clearly now, and the clarity hurt more than the lies. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. His sister. Why did he show up here crying? What did you do? Then his best friend. He says you accused him of cheating over nothing. Then his mother. I let the call go to voicemail, but the message followed seconds later. What is going on? My son is devastated. I sank back onto the couch, my hands shaking. He had already started rewriting the story, painting himself as the victim, me as the jealous, controlling girlfriend who overreacted. And the worst part was knowing how believable that version would sound. By evening, the messages multiplied. Friends I barely knew, people I'd met once at parties, all asking some version of the same question. What happened? Why is he so upset? Did you really go through his phone? I hadn't touched his phone. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't thrown anything. I had simply drawn a line. But in that moment, sitting alone in the dim light of our living room, it felt like the world was closing in on me anyway. For the first time since this started, I doubted myself. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have handled it privately. Maybe I should have given him more time. The thoughts spiraled until my chest tightened again, panic creeping in at the edges. I hugged my knees, pressing my forehead into them, trying to ground myself. This was the lowest point, not because he left, but because for a moment, I almost believed I was wrong for protecting myself. And that realization, that I could be made to doubt my own reality so easily, was more terrifying than any lie he had told. I didn't know it yet, but this was the moment before everything turned. Because the truth has a way of demanding air, and soon I would stop suffocating it. The turning point didn't come with a dramatic confrontation or a sudden surge of confidence. It came quietly, sitting alone on my couch, phone in my hand, staring at messages that weren't even meant to hurt me, but did. I opened one from his sister. He says you went through his private messages and accused him of cheating. He's really hurt. I read it twice. That was the moment something inside me finally snapped into place. This wasn't just about what he had done. This was about what he was continuing to do, even now, even after being caught. He wasn't owning his actions. He was reshaping them, smoothing the edges, turning me into the problem so he wouldn't have to sit with his own guilt. I thought about the woman who had messaged me that morning, a stranger, someone with no reason to protect me, and yet she had told the truth anyway, calmly, clearly, without drama. I opened our conversation again and reread her last message. He said if he were you, he'd want to know. That was it. I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't being insecure. I wasn't overreacting. I was responding to facts. I took a deep breath and opened my private social media account. Not public, not performative, just the place where friends and family existed, people who were already hearing distorted versions of the story. I posted the screenshots. No long explanation, no insults, just a single caption. For anyone wondering what actually happened, my finger hovered over the screen for a second before I hit post. My heart was pounding, but there was something else there too, relief. Within minutes, the messages stopped. Then, slowly they changed. One friend messaged, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know." Another said, "I jumped to conclusions. That was wrong." His sister unfollowed him. Two of his friends sent apologies, quiet ones, embarrassed ones. Even his ex-girlfriend's boyfriend checked in. "Proud of you for standing up for yourself." At midnight, my phone rang. It was him. "You posted the screenshots," he said, his voice breaking. "I did." "How could you do that to me?" I closed my eyes. "How could you do what you did to me?" "I made a mistake," he said. "I admitted it. But airing our relationship problems publicly is cruel." "I didn't air anything," I said. "I corrected the record." "Everyone thinks I'm a liar now." "That's not my problem to fix." Silence. "So that's it?" he asked finally. "We're just done?" "Yes," I said. "We're done." He came by the next week while I was at work and collected his things, left the key on the counter, no note, no apology. And when I walked into the apartment that evening, the space felt different. Lighter. Not empty. Free. That was the moment I knew. I hadn't lost anything worth keeping. I had reclaimed myself. The aftermath didn't explode all at once. It unraveled slowly, quietly, in ways that felt almost poetic. For the first few days after he picked up his things, my phone stayed unusually silent. No accusations, no frantic explanations, no more people asking me what had happened. The truth had settled, and with it came an uncomfortable stillness. But while my world grew calmer, his began to collapse. I didn't hear about it directly at first. It came in fragments. A friend mentioning something awkward. A mutual acquaintance asking if I was okay, their voice softer than before. Someone else casually saying, "I didn't know he'd been telling everyone a different story." His sister stopped speaking to him altogether. Not dramatically, she just disappeared. No calls, no messages. She unfollowed him on social media the same way I had done weeks earlier, quietly, deliberately. His mother called me one evening, her voice uncertain. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I believed the wrong version of things." I thanked her and kept the conversation short. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done explaining myself. What hurt him most, I think, was losing control of the narrative. People stopped asking how he was doing. They stopped defending him. They stopped making excuses on his behalf. And without an audience willing to absorb his version of events, he was left alone with what he had actually done. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding in small, intentional ways. I started going to the gym again. Not to punish my body, but to feel strong inside it. I reconnected with friends I had slowly drifted away from while trying to make space for his uncertainty. I picked up hobbies I'd put aside, things that belonged to me, before I started shrinking myself to fit his indecision. His ex-girlfriend tried to message him again after our breakup. I heard this from her boyfriend, who checked in on me once more just to make sure I was okay. He told me his girlfriend blocked her immediately. That part didn't feel like revenge. It felt like consequences. Weeks later, I ran into him unexpectedly. A grocery store. A brief, awkward moment between shelves of cereal and coffee. He looked tired, smaller somehow. He tried to smile. "You look good." "So do you," I said politely, because I didn't hate him. I just didn't belong to him anymore. "I messed up," he said quietly. "I know that now." "I know," I replied. There was nothing else to say. I walked away without shaking hands, without closure speeches, without bitterness. And for the first time since this began, I felt truly at peace. Because the truth hadn't destroyed me. It had freed me. 3 weeks have passed since the day everything fell apart. Long enough for the shock to fade. Long enough for the ache to soften into something quieter. Long enough for me to see the whole story clearly, without the fog of fear or hope blurring the edges. He picked up the last of his things while I was at work, left the key on the counter, no note, no apology. And strangely, that felt right. Some endings don't need speeches, they just need space. His social media went quiet for a while. Then, slowly, the vague posts appeared, quotes about growth, about learning lessons the hard way, about becoming better. I didn't react. I didn't need to. Those words weren't for me. I've been doing better than okay. I work out more now. I laugh more easily. I say yes to invitations without checking my phone every 10 minutes. I stopped shrinking myself to accommodate someone else's indecision. Last week, I went on a first date. Nothing dramatic, just coffee and honest conversation. We talked about boundaries, about communication, about what it means to choose someone fully instead of keeping one foot in the past. It felt refreshing, real, safe in a way that didn't require me to prove my worth. Yesterday, I ran into him again at a coffee shop. He saw me first, hesitated, then walked over. "You look happy," he said. "I am." I wanted to say I'm sorry, for real this time. I nodded. "I hope you figure out what you want." "Do you think we could ever be friends?" he asked. "No," I said gently. "I don't." He accepted that, or at least he didn't argue. I finished my coffee and went home. I don't hate him. I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful. Grateful I found out before we moved in together. Before our lives became more tangled. Before I wasted years waiting for someone who couldn't decide if I was enough. The woman who messaged me that morning saved me from months, maybe years, of quiet uncertainty. Sometimes the kindest thing a stranger can do is tell you the truth everyone else is hiding. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is believe it.